as to what has happened to the microphone, but that's okay. Today we're going to talk about faith. Faith is a little sometimes fuzzy in our understanding. And sometimes we think that, well, it's a funny thing. If we had more faith, we'd get more. More faith, we'd get more. Bigger faith. And I've heard people urge to that. And it took me back just for a moment. And if you'll indulge me just for a minute or so before we get to our reading from Brian, it took me back to a moment in time about 45 years ago. Any of you remember the movie Jaws? Oh, yeah, okay. And the idea that things are going wrong, and there reaches that magic moment when the sheriff is at the back of the boat, and he's just throwing out the chum to see if they can attract this giant killer shark. And I'll never forget, because I went to see the movie. I was about 25 years old. I was young and vigorous, had hair, the whole 9 yards. And I went with a bunch of teenagers. And I was sitting next to Alan McKelvey on my right. And he had seen the movie already, so he knew what was coming. But when the sheriff's sort of talking back into the boat, and his arm goes out to throw out the chum, and at that very moment, the shark comes out of the water, and you think he's going to bite the guy's arm off right then. I literally levitated and ended up in Alan McKelvey's lap. And he thought that was hilarious. You know, here his hip young pastor is sitting in his lap because he's scared spitless. But that to me illustrates, you know, the frightening response. We need something bigger. If we just take a moment and illustrate that with that film clip. Now that moment is iconic. We need something bigger. And this is very much the topic of our reading today. So I invite Brian to share with us.
Good morning. This is a passage from Luke 17, verses 5 to 10. The apostle said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." He replied, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to the mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it will obey you. Suppose one of you has a servant plowing or looking after the sheep. Will he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, 'Come along now and sit down to eat'? Won't he rather say, 'Prepare my supper, get yourself ready, and wait on me while I eat and drink. After that, you may eat and drink'? Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty.'"
You get the impression, if you're not careful, that Jesus is answering by saying, you know, if you have a little teeny-weeny bit of faith, then you could still do incredible things. And if you had more faith, you could do more incredible things. I had that experience as a young person. The summer of my 19th year, I went to East Texas, and I worked on the ranch there in Big Sandy, Texas. And I went swimming in Lake Loma, and I recall that I got an ear infection. And ear infections are no fun at all. And so I missed the worship service on that weekend, and I called for an elder, and the duty elder then to visit any church member or student who was sick happened to be an instructor in science on the faculty. He came to see me with someone else, and of course, I got out of bed in my shorts and knelt down. He anointed me, and afterwards I got up, and I was still feeling kind of, oh, man, this is bad. But I knew that this was somewhat common. Lake Loma had this funny bacteria that could get in the ear and cause problems. And I said, how long will this infection last? And he said, well, it depends on your faith. Now, of course, faced with that, if the infection lasted a week, then I was obviously going to say, well, my faith batteries must be pretty bad. But if Charlie over here, who got the same infection, he bounced back after 3 days, well, I guess he's fully charged on faith. And the response I'm getting is proportional to my faith. And you can take that impression from this statement by Jesus. And the idea that if you have enough faith, you can control the outcome of circumstances is false. I know that there are numerous times when Jesus will seem to be saying that under certain circumstances, but at the end of the discussion, can you manipulate God because your faith is so powerful? Can you claim or even name and then claim the promise that you like? Can you name a dollar figure and win it or earn it? Can you name an outcome and pray for it and name it and claim it? Or as, with all sincerity and accuracy, my Pentecostal friend, who's a pastor, said to me, well, there are those who claim that, Bob, that you can name it and claim it. Then, in short, you can blab it and grab it. Oh, I didn't realize that was the view. And so this is very strong in certain circles and with certain people's thinking. I recall actually attending a conference where it was advertised, if you will, before the offering was taken, that there's increase and then there's supernatural increase. And the music that accompanied the taking of the offering had somebody singing very, very sweetly, supernatural increase coming my way. I have what I say what I have, and I have what I say. But this, again, is a misinterpretation. Jesus says to them, essentially, if you have faith, you have faith. If you have faith as the grain of a mustard seed, you can take and pray that this mulberry tree be uprooted and planted in the sea. Now, you think about that, that's an absolutely incredibly ridiculous thing to say. Where is a tree planted? In soil. So it has stability, it has roots, it can get nutrition out of the soil. The wind comes along, and today we are seeing pictures of trees that survived gusts of 100, 120, 150 miles an hour in Florida. Why? How do those palm trees survive? Well, they got roots. They're planted in the soil. They're going to lose some branches maybe, or they'll lose some leaves, but they survive year after year after year. You can't plant a tree in the sea. It's ridiculous. In the same way, you can't come back from the dead. That's ridiculous. But somebody did it. And if your faith is in Jesus, then he will do the impossible. He has done the impossible. And the declaration of your faith in him is sufficient for everything. But your declaration of faith, I have power to believe, is not the way it should be. It should be, I believe in his power. The declaration is not, we're going to need a bigger boat. The declaration should be, we are in harmony, we are in unity, we are following after the God of sea and sky. He controls the sea. We say we're going to get a bigger boat because the threat is bigger than we anticipated. So we better beef up our resources. We better build up this battery of faith. No. It's either placed in Jesus Christ, who is the author and finisher of our faith, the one who starts it and the one who finishes it. the one who outlines what is going to happen, and whose will be done. And so there are times when we will pray and ask for mercy and compassion, and it will be granted. How many times have I seen what I will term small miracles? People who have sincerely prayed and had their lives extended. I remember the gentleman many years ago. I anointed and prayed with him. He had a brain tumor, and they took it out, and he had a new lease on life. And it lasted a number of years, during which he was able to understand his calling, find reconciliation to his children, find a pathway through life, and then with grace and with dignity succumb, still in midlife, to the inevitability of this brain tumor that took his life. You may say, well, if God can work small miracles, why don't you trust him for big ones? And the answer is, I have trusted him for big ones. He's moved me from death unto life. I have trusted him for big ones, and I will continue to do so in the resurrection to everlasting life. And so this is the focus that we have. We have to move us and our faith to the sidelines and place him in the middle and place our belief in his power, not our power to believe. Jesus says this is very basic, it's very fundamental. It's the basic thing that needs to be done, which is why he goes on to explain something that's a little bit, this doesn't feel real warm and fuzzy. Suppose one of you has a servant plowing or looking after the sheep. Will he say to the servant when he comes in from the field, come along now and sit down to eat? Wouldn't he rather say, prepare my supper, get yourself ready and wait on me while I eat and drink? After that you may eat and drink. Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? Now the answer to that is obviously, in that time, in that place, and in that context, no. Now we live in a time and place when it is appropriate, and has always been appropriate, to give praise, to give affirmation, to express appreciation. However, I think we'd all admit over the last 50 years it's sort of gotten a little bit out of hand. We live in a culture where, let's say, everybody who participates gets a medal for participation. And that's expected now. You do a basic job, perhaps, and it is almost anticipated that you don't say, oh, thank you. You say, thank you, that's really good. Or, thank you for actually being on time, or thanks for just getting around to doing it whenever it comes in. And what is a typical response today? It's not thank you, I'll let you know how it looks later. It's, oh, awesome. You ever heard that one? Awesome, dude, awesome. How many things can be absolutely awesome? The word loses its meaning after a while. Now, I'm not trashing affirmation. I'm not saying that it's a wrong thing to do, because, to be blunt, I do it all the time. It's anticipated, it's expected of children, of grandchildren, and I'm not going to go against the wind, you know. But on the other hand, if I say something is, hey, that's nice, it's not an insult. It's not a put down. It's just a simple statement of, yeah, that looks good. That looks nice. Do I have to ring the bells, flash the lights, alert the presses? You know, that is absolutely awesome that you did something basic, or you got it together, or you met certain requirements? No, that's over the top. But that's the culture we live in today. And so this strikes me and strikes you as, oh, this is not a warm fuzzy here. Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? But in our culture, yeah, you know, I appreciate that. In fact, I recommend that strongly. You know, you don't say to the waiter, gee, you're 5 seconds late. You know, you be thankful, you be grateful, you be supportive. And to be blunt, that's the way Jesus has been towards me. You know, he has been, rather warm and comforting, even when I've given substandard responses and flubbed up and failed. And he hasn't said, oh, you're such a disappointment. He said, well, just get up, try again, He treats me as if I'm a 2-year-old. I wonder why. You get the point. That's the way you treat small children. You encourage them and you promote them. But in this particular context, we're talking about Jesus drawing an example and saying, look, when you have a bondservant, when you have a slave, he's expected to do certain things, right? Yeah, he's expected to do certain things. So you also, when you have done everything that you were told to do, should say, we're unworthy servants. We've only done our duty. When it comes to me, he's saying, the basic premise is that I'm God. And the basic premise is you're not. Do you get that? Well, not in my culture, I don't. I've grown up believing that my needs should be met. In fact, I've grown up believing that need fulfillment is extremely important, and you ought to get busy to try and do some more of it for me, You're pretty much tuned into the way the last 50 years have been. It's been perhaps disrespectfully been called the Oprahfication of America, the Oprahfication of our society, because she is the one who sort of led some of that in the vanguard. We went through the phase of the wounded inner child, right? We have sort of promoted a cult of victimology, What about my needs? What about my hurts? What about everything else? And then we are having a sort of a bit of swing back in the other direction. Many of us are familiar with the work of Jordan Peterson, a graduate of the University of Alberta, for better or for worse, a product of Alberta society. And Jordan Peterson is famous for saying, hey, life is kind of a challenge. You might reconcile yourself to that. Not everything exists to just make you feel warm and fuzzy all the time. There is virtue to hard work, something you learned if you grew up on the farm, right? And you didn't grow up surrounded by cotton wool and just supported and nurtured from all sides. You learned that there had to be a certain amount of hard work and independence, all the virtues that go with the rural upbringing in Alberta, where you have to survive the harsh winters and you have to sweat and plow the ground and do certain things if you expect to get a crop later. And so in this particular context, he said, look, don't get all complacent just because you've done the basics here. And it sounds very harsh, but we are unworthy servants. We've only done our duty. Just face the fact that this is the basic requirement, is what he's saying. And again, it comes across harsh to us because he's speaking in an environment where it was understood that a master could whip a slave. It was understood that a servant just couldn't tell the boss where to stick it, Nobody in this time and place said, you can take this job and shove it. Nobody said that. You didn't say that. You couldn't say that. Even though in this day and age we think, well, you should be able to say that. No? What he is saying to us here is, look, if you're going to be my servant, if you're going to follow me, then one aspect of that is to understand that I'm at the center of things. You aren't. I am God. You're not. And the reality is, I am not a cosmic, heavenly ATM that you can just name it, press the button, and claim it. Or that if you have, quote, enough faith, and it's strong enough, you're going to get what you want because you deserve to get it. No. If you have the grain of mustard seed, which is faith, then you've got it. If you place it in me, then I'm able to do all sorts of incredible things. I can plant a tree where it doesn't belong. I can take a dead body and bring it back to life. I can do all these things. Did you get it? Yeah, okay, I get it. Good. That's the basic. Now, from here on, from that premise, you can understand that we'll work together, but you will participate in my ministry. You will walk with me, okay? You will talk with me, and I will love you. In fact, I've already demonstrated that through my sacrifice. I've already demonstrated that through the work of reconciling you to your Creator God in heaven, and I will bring you into everlasting life. So how do we summarize the lessons from this? Well, I would summarize it this way before I lose what's rest of my voice. It's not possible to direct God's will with our faith. So I'm going to say we should pray what has sometimes been called the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Well, why can't I change them? Because I'm God, and I'm doing this my way, not yours. Oh, okay, I guess that's the perspective I should have. So grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And wisdom to recognize the difference. And the wisdom that comes from on high says, take yourself out of the center of this picture. Get your mind out of the need fulfillment track. Get your mind off the idea that, well, your brother or sister who's going through a difficult time, obviously, they need a bigger faith. Look at me, I'm doing okay right now. My faith must be total. No, it doesn't work that way. We all have the same faith, and we need to place it and understand that it has been placed in the power of Jesus Christ. And as a result of that, He will give us the wisdom and the understanding that He is walking with us every step of the way through life. And we can huff and we can snort sometimes. We can claim, if I only had a bigger boat. No, it's not that way. Not quite that way. Let us have the wisdom to know the difference. You may say, well, you took that Serenity Prayer right from Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not an alcoholic. That's true, you're not. But you are equally buffeted by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. You are equally buffeted by the weaknesses of your own flesh. You're equally buffeted by the temptation to think. You know, if you're an alcoholic, you tend to think, oh, well, if people didn't stress me and do this and do that and do the other thing, this wouldn't be a problem. Or if I was only in a different place, you know, the geographical cure for this, or the circumstantial cure. No. I have to accept that there's power greater than me, and I have to submit to that power. That's one of the many lessons that you learn from Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is one of the many lessons that we have to, in fact, that one of the first lessons we have to learn as followers of Jesus Christ. Grant me the serenity to accept the reality of the circumstances and situation. I'm fond of saying to people and to myself, when things go a little wrong, hey, He did warn us that we are sheep sent out among wolves. He did warn us that you will have tribulation in this life. He didn't say if you only had enough faith, it would all go much, much better, Bob. He said, no, this life is going to, well, it's going to throw things at you. I've complained the last couple of weeks, 2 vehicles, 2 transmissions gone. Lord, why me? And the voice answered from heaven, well, Bob, why not you? Have you figured out there are people in the world who don't even have 2 vehicles? They have 2 feet, and that's the best that they have. Oh, I guess you've blessed me with 2 vehicles, and now you've blessed me with the challenge of maintenance. You got it. Oh, well, you could have warned me. Don't be stupid. Things did come with a manual, you know. Oh, okay, all right. Stop looking at the fact that you're not the center of the universe. My mother used to try to explain this to me when I was young. Her expression was rather blunt. She said, Robert, the world doesn't revolve around your rear end. Well, why not? Why not? Why am I not the center of the universe? I don't know where my mother learned that, but I never forgot her wisdom. You know, the world does not revolve around your rear. Why'd you have to say that? It makes me feel small. It makes me feel off-center. It humbles me. Good, that's why I said it, you know. Get the reality that Jesus Christ is the center of things. And so may we have the serenity to accept the realities that he is God and we are not, and the courage to tackle the things that he places before us as responsibilities and challenges in life, knowing that he will walk with us through every step of the way. And may we understand that we are not guilty of something, and neither is our brother or sister, and especially the way we tend to judge others on this matter of faith. That is not some profound spiritual failing that they're not getting what they prayed for, or they're not getting what we think they should get if they were faithful Christians. Let us rest in the fact that Jesus Christ is Lord, and when we have placed our faith in him, we are placed our faith in the one who will change everything and has changed everything. Literally turned the world upside down. He said, yeah, I can plant a tree in the sea and it'll grow there. Just as surely as I can bring death back and I can bring life to those who are spiritually dead and those who are physically dead. I can do this. Do you trust me? And it's time for us to say, yes, Lord, we trust you. You are the one we believe in. You are the one with the power. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, as we read this rather puzzling little section of Scripture, we ask that you would bring to mind the realities of our lives. You would comfort and strengthen us when our understanding falters, and that as we continue to walk with you through this journey of life, you will bring to mind the fact that your love, your peace is the blessing that you've given us, and the promise of everlasting life is the motivation that should bring us along through trial and tribulation, through triumph and disaster. We thank you today that you have been with us every step of the way, and you will continue to be there, and that with your understanding, we can be comforted and strengthened. We ask this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.